right, here we go. Because we're awesome. All right. Well, thank you for coming on again. I mean, I know I'm nobody on the internet, but it's always like last time, it's always an honor and a privilege to get to talk to you because you are someone who, as like last time, you've had a lot of life lessons and they've sort of imprinted on you over time and you've become sort of this generous selfless person. Well, within reason, because obviously you've learned at least somewhat to tell, like bad, good, whatever. Not that I'm that great either, but I do what I can. But you seem to have your head on straight enough. So, but what do I know?
It's all subjective, so it's so hard to say, but that's very nice of you. Yeah.
Yeah,
I last time we talked about a lot of things that like, I don't know, it seemed to flow naturally. So I
yeah,
was like, yeah, we could do that again because
yeah,
I I don't know, it seems to be very invigorating for me lately to like talk to, you know, different people and like share, wisdom or life lessons and stuff like that has been
yeah,
really interesting lately. So I've been doing a lot of it actually, which
yeah.
has been cool. Connecting with people and like making new friends and stuff, which has been nice.
Yeah, you seem to do that a lot on your own Twitter, which I mean is a great thing, but it's also for me the ultimate cusp of it is getting to meet in person and having those conversations. Uh, but
Yeah.
it takes money to travel, and obviously you want to be very careful of who you meet in person or how you want to do it because obviously you never know in person. It's always easier when there's a distance than when they're right in front of you like how do I what do I do now? So
Yeah. Yeah. It's not so bad. In person, like the awkwardness kind of doesn't really, I don't know, awkward doesn't affect me. It
mhm,
like doesn't embarrass me because I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be a little weird. Like
yeah,
I'm meeting somebody for the first time. I never met them. So like I might have nerves about it, but like it kind of like clarifies everything. So you're like, oh, okay, you understand the person that much more, and you
mhm.
feel maybe I don't know.
Yeah,
It's most of the time when I've met people, it's actually been like better than I expected. Yeah.
right. Which is the funny thing. So have you gotten to meet anyone that you have sort of on through your Twitter then? So like if
Yeah.
like a follow someone who follows you, have you been able to meet anyone in person or has it just sort of been just like this in a sense?
I've met several people. Yeah. Yeah, there's been some like sort of quasi dates that were more framed as like let's just meet and hang out and see how that goes. And
Mm-hmm.
when before I moved to West Virginia, I met a couple people in Florida,
Mm-hmm.
and that was cool. And then I took like a road trip and I met um, yeah, I don't want to try and remember the screen names of everybody because I don't remember everyone's screen name. Like
Right.
I know what their face and everything, but yeah, I met several people like on this road trip as well,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the people I became really close with was like AC, like the real AC
Mm-hmm.
on there, and Alexandria Hatch.
Yeah.
I've met several times in person, and yeah, that part I've actually been discussing like female relationships with like a new friend of mine, and that's been really interesting, like her and I talking about like how women interact and having like how different it feels to have like a healing connection with another woman versus like a I don't know, just purely social versus like a purely social, like superficial connection with a woman or
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a uh, adversarial one
Yeah.
for her. So
I do think that That seems to be more apparent with women than men, but I mean, men have their own. It seems they have their own adversarial part as well. It's just in a different makeup because you always think of the stereotype women of they do it in a more sneaky, silenter way, and then you have the men who do it brash up front, all that stuff. So you have those stereotypes, but it can be slight differences. It's like holding up a prism and then you just twist the prism a bit and it's just like, oh, so that can happen, and then you twist it again and that, and so the variations are, uh I would think, quite a bit. Not that I know. I may have siblings, but I don't understand the female mind. Like, I only understand the female mind 1% better. That's it. That's all I got. So
Yeah.
I I won an award. It
It's
was,
complicated. I don't
yeah.
say I understand women. That's a crazy thing to say. Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't. Well, I'm a guy, so I kind
Or
of,
men.
yeah, I kind of say that because that's the opposite end of the field I'm at. But even then, I may not understand other men either because it's about the life stuff, right? Like the what paths and lives you take, how'd you get there, the environment you grew up in, all the variations that make up the molded version of you. And
Right.
and the same goes for women, but we on the society as a whole, we have this uh, conglomeration of how either side should be because I mean, in essence, you can't have one with the other because without one or the other, humanity just disappears. That's the bottom line of it. You know, some people will try to replace that with technology, but the technology is too far behind or complicated or messy, and you've already got the perfect biological engine to go right now. It's been going for however many years it's been, and but
Right.
we've come to that point where we're tired of each other's uh, misgivings, flaws, bickerings, whinings, challenges, mishearings, all this stuff that just is so negative that we
Mhm.
just said, I'm done with you. I'm done with you. And then you have
Yeah.
these stories, right? Which we'll talk soon. The Vox articles talking about. I don't really know how venerated Vox is. It's just the subject matter within that story I wanted to chat with you a bit because I saw that and it's like, that's also being used as something towards as sort of a weapon against women and men to be sort of a separator. And that's why I feel like there will always it just feels like that, like last time, like the divide is getting bigger and we just want to
Right.
end having something to do with each other because as I see it, you know, I don't I don't know when it sort of began as that grasp grasp of wanting to just make it about, they talk about platonic and all that stuff, but it's more of just like it's either you're with each other or you're not. And sort of that thinking has sort of smalled down to just like you either are or aren't, when it's just like, oh, we're friends. Maybe it could go there, but we're just people who knew each other. We got along, similar stuff. I don't know if you see the same, but that's what I see from time to time. So,
What do you mean, like, do you mean there's, like, more platonic
no, no,
connections
no, no,
than romantic or something?
no. It's just it's seen more as like you either doing them or not doing them. Is basically where the thought process is now. Where you see either it used to be just a guy and a girl, but now it's like girl and girl, guy and guy, girl and guy, or whatever, because you have all this
Mhm.
sphere of just whatever. And now people assume that you're either with this person because they're standing right next to you or that they've known you for a long time. And then there's no place for a platonic relationship of just being a friend to somebody, right? I mean, if a friend,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, I get what you're saying
Mm,
now. Yeah, I think it is difficult to have platonic relationships. I think that's just a reality of it though. Like it's difficult in the way that like people assume that there's romantic feelings, like if
mm,
there's any connection at all. And then so, but there is like a presence of that, like with a male and female, like of any, there's, I think it's just because like it's possible that
Mm-hmm.
a romantic connection could happen between a male and female. It's just felt on an energetic level, like that because the possibility is there,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it looms to a greater or lesser degree. And I think that like also depends on like how well the people know each other and like how well they
Oh.
communicate, because sometimes I'm pretty sure I've seen some genuine platonic male female relationships,
Mm-hmm.
but I've found that to be difficult. So I'm not sure I'm super interested in it at this point. Like I do enjoy men. Like I think it's like in a group of friends, I
Mm-hmm.
feel more comfortable than like hanging out with just like one man, who if he's not a romantic connection, because like when I'm hanging out with a man alone, I feel more of that like tension, that there's some expectation, some, you know, somewhere. And so, and it does make it hard to just be yourself completely.
Yeah,
You
there's
like hold back,
yeah.
you know.
Oh, I mean, because you said mentioned earlier about awkwardness, but uh, yeah, because that was complaining it too. But I think it's just we are two very different people with two very different mindsets of how the world is. There may be some stereotypes we lean on, some things we that kind of the patterns we see and all that stuff, but when we get down to it, we really don't know much about each other in the sense of male and female because we just go by what has been. And sometimes that can work, don't get me wrong, but the issuance is that we apply that to everything without realizing that maybe it doesn't always work that way. It's sort of like trying to read a mind in order to um what is it? It's sort of like trying to meet a mind to that defense mechanism within ourselves, right? Like you don't want to get hurt,
Uh,
you don't want to get rejected and all this stuff. So if you see like rejection coming on, you'd be like, okay, they'll reject me, that's it. That's it, whatever, I'll just talk and then we'll be normal or something that rather. But you you can be surprised. And I think there's still some of that. It's just that we have a lot of voices saying, no, it's done. Just walk away. It doesn't matter anymore. Just go do what you want. That's it. Which I mean, don't get me wrong, your life is your own. But when you just say walk away and completely forget everything else, I I think you're throwing away a chunk of human experience that even if you don't end up with someone in your life, you got to experience it and had that knowledge,
yeah,
that grow knowledge.
yeah,
Um, but
I
that's just
agree. I think it's worthwhile to connect anyway, even
mm,
if like nothing like comes of it, or no, you know, expectation is fulfilled or something, but like just to explore that and like have an answer. You
mm,
kind of know then what's between you and another person, and that there's something interesting there usually. You know, it's there is usually some kind of dynamic that you analyze a little bit and find interesting.
mm,
So
yeah. And I think that's a great thing that we get to have is that we get to have those conversations. It's just with everything else going on, like other people who like I guess the red pill or any pill or whatever. Then you have the MGTOW and then of course feminism, all that. You have conflicting ideas that want to be different because they don't want to be their mom and dad, which is okay. Don't be your mom and dad. I get that. I don't want to be my mom and dad because their life was their own. It's mine has to be. But there were some things that they did that make sense for the connection, the relationship connection, if it ever happens to you or whatever. And I think there are lessons that can be taken, few, some lessons that can be taken and applied on because we're dealing with the human psychology here. We're dealing with a thing that's been around longer than you and I have been born. And it's just trial and error and evolved and changed. But when you come to the point that people no longer want to be together, they will push each other away and replace them with something else. And that's the scary part. Not maybe maybe to me a little bit, but to everyone else who would like the chance but will no longer get it because they've just it's like what is it? What is that history thing of the Berlin Wall? The Berlin Wall, right? Sooner or later, it's not going to be between a political stance. It's going to be between a the war of sexes stance, and everyone's going to be like, why is this even here? But whatever. I don't know anything. I'm just here. Just here.
I'm sorry. I don't know if like I don't know if I caught like the
Oh,
anyway.
oh,
Yeah. I tried to read some of that article, but
oh
I was a
yeah.
little lost on what the point of the article is.
Yeah, no, and again, like I said, I don't know how much Vox is a trusted source of anything, but it's the context within it that caught me because oh that's right,
Yeah, yeah.
I better show it now. Uh because I can't. So share it. Okay. So the title is why can't even you oh sorry, you can't even pay people to have more kids. So I'm get the so again, don't know how trusted Vox is, don't really care. It's the context within. So the what they talk about is that some countries have paid in certain ways to for people to have kids, whether it's a tax, uh, pay, paid parental leave, tax breaks, all this other stuff, and people just don't go for it. And of course, you see in America where they talk about MGTOW and stuff like don't have kids, court system and all that. And it just seems like this would go within that remark of as sort of like their confirmation bias thing, where it's like, look, see, they tried all this stuff, so it's not going to work. So we just keep walking away. Um, yeah, and it just how politicians have tried to convince people to have babies, which ironically is something you shouldn't listen to as politicians. you should you shouldn't listen
Right.
you shouldn't listen to politicians to have kids because if they have kids, then they're not in the right place in the first place because they're in a position of government. Uh, what was it? For abuse outbreak. Oh yeah, there was a while back there was another column with JD Vance, but it was sort of like the whole abortion thing. Um, but he talked upon that lost stuff, but this is completely different than that. And surrender Taiwan, like Taiwan's have spent billions of dollars to try to all manner of incentives to cajole or even bribe people into having more babies. European countries have tried to do the same. What was it? University of Maryland studies German instructor. Austria lengthened their maternity leave to 2.5 years. Germany increased investment child care and early education. And 2013. Okay, so 80s, also about 80s and 90s, and then 2013 confirmed that every child over the age of 1 had the right to a spot in a public daycare, which is interesting because that's sort of like, what if every parent doesn't want their kid in daycare, Um, but
Right.
but because of how things work, where you have to work all day and you need somebody to watch them while you work, it sort of begins to show how we kind of split off from that point. Um, and I said,
Yeah,
Rush,
it's interesting that like if they relieved pressure in the economy like in other ways, like I don't know, that maybe that would help more than just telling people they should have kids and like we'll give you, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of strange because like it's not really set up for the traditional like woman state like a lot of households require two incomes possibly. I think also some people are a little uncreative in that regard, I think. But I don't have kids, so it's hard for me to speak on like
right,
um financial issues. All I know is like growing up it did seem difficult for my parents, to make ends meet, but they did nonetheless. Like
mhm,
there's something about having kids that's like an enormous motivator,
mhm,
to make it work, and uh, most parents or most people that have just like a normal, I don't know if normal is the right word, but actual care, and they care about being decent parents, at least make sure that their kids have enough to eat, and
Hmm.
all that stuff.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I was on another stream. I was invited to another stream, and we had they had been watching some video about some preacher guy going down to a LGBT rally and all that confrontation. But during the process of the conversation going from that, where I had asked, you know, I had come to the question of what is normal. And my definition was my personal definition was after watching all the stuff, especially all the stuff from a few years ago with all the coof stuff and all that jazz. Um, normal to me, the definition for it seems to be about status quo, returning to the status quo, or what was before. Like with all the coof stuff, everyone once it during it, everything was frayed, mangled, whatever. There may have been some good positive out of it, but after the fact, people just wanted to get back before it happened. So it's almost like bad times come and people want to go back to the good times, but they can't go back to the exact good times, which I think is what, in my mind, the weird thing of that's what I think normal means is people wanting to go back to that. Doesn't mean I know that it is. People will use the Webster's dictionary or they'll use another definition, but for me, after seeing all this stuff, it just feels like normal just means status quo, whatever the before the
Right.
change. I don't know what your definition or what you go by, but for me that's what that meant. So what do you think, or what is your POV of what normal is, or as seen, or definition of?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would agree with you. It's like average expectation of experience or something like that. It's
Yeah.
like the like what you would consider like the baseline
Mhm.
uh, median sort of experience, or like what's most likely and expected. I find that it's it's really hard to apply that to people, because I think that people are way more complex than that
Mhm.
all over the map. But yeah, there are general, like, especially, I guess, if you're talking about somebody who participates in society in such a way where um where they're very suggestible through media,
Mhm.
um that might be what I think of as like a normal perspective,
Mhm.
or average, or like majority
Mhm.
perspective or something on life. But I can't, I don't know, it's really hard, like when you're on social media and you interact with a lot of like unique individuals, and I don't know, I don't really perceive that there is really a firm average of
Yeah.
experience, but I think there is an average expectation of experience, and that would be like the pop cultural, sort of projection of like, you make so much money and these
Mhm.
are the things you should normally be able to do, and this is how you should, you know, try to parent or be a person or whatever. So I guess there is some of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is a framework, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think that expectation is about like the normal route of you go through school, you go to college, you get married. That's the thing that everyone has gone by in the past, or deems as have gone by in the past. That was the route
Oh,
one took. So
okay.
there's that
Yeah.
there's just that line people know or people have been taught to know, and I can only speak from my experience because when you try to say something of difference and people are like, no, that's not what it is. I'm like, I'm not telling you it's any different. I'm just telling you what I see. And it's very funny. I'm not gonna say social media represents the entire world, but there are enough people on it that you can have that thought and probably be correct because that's where it's at. But you go to places where there's no internet or no one uses, maybe no one may have a phone or whatever, cell phone, not landline, but cell phone. You may be
Yeah.
correct. It's not to everyone. And that's what I think with this right here for normal is that for a while, people were like have kids and all that stuff. That was the normality. But then we began having these things, right? Of course you have societal stuff like feminism, the Me Too thing, and uh then all the stuff that goes with it. And then you have the smaller stuff, which is how these interactions within those things act, like the family court stuff, the uh, male to female thing, and then you add, you have the gay relationships, you have the trans relationship, you add more to this what was viewed as a simple one line thing, and now it's just like this bundle of fibers in this whole thread that's supposed to be like, you know, straight and whatever, but it's really just a chaotic mess. Society is one chaotic mess away from ripping its own fabric of existence, which is the funny part. But funny to me when you think about it because it almost feels like it becomes an existential crisis when you think on it too long. So
Yeah.
you either cry at
Like,
it or laugh. Sorry. No,
no,
go.
you're right.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say it seems like a perpetual condition, like human condition. It's
Mm,
like to feel like, I mean, things could literally fall apart at any time. Like our whole existence is on like a razor's edge
mm,
uh of possibility to begin with, or you know, um just the fact that like our distance from the sun is very specific, and the moon helps, and like all these elements are like keeping us alive on this planet in the
yeah.
first place. Like the life is that way. It's like it is on a razor's edge of like falling apart all the time, you
Yeah.
know. um and I think people certainly feel that. That's like a, the looming sort of existential dread is sort of like things could end at any moment. Am I doing the right thing? Am I being the person that I want to be if it's all over soon,
Yeah.
you know?
And that's what I think there's a wrongness. I mean, just in this article, I don't know how much is true or not, but just in the article, I think the one thing it feels like they miss is that they don't fully understand why what is happening, right? Because part of it is political. I mean, sorry, it's part of our whatever country you're in. Politics plays into it because we're all in this together on this blue marble, and unfortunately, some of us don't like playing nice with each other because we're all different. And when we don't play nice, wars can ensue, corruption, all this stuff. And for,
Yeah.
for me, when I read this, it was like, well, someone else had brought up because it was a sort of like a wedge point to show a proof of something, confirmation bias, all this stuff. But for me, it was like, if this is true in the sense of what is said, um, then we have created our own ending, basically. And we did it because well, it's a lot of things, not one thing. Don't get me wrong. Putting people in power don't need to be not coming to the table and sit down, at least have a discussion of why an extreme side, a feminism or red pill, MGTOW, all that stuff, could be truly bad, and why the things in the middle, like the family court stuff and the things that men and women kind of grasp at each other on that, the weeds, and why that may not be,
Yeah.
why the discussions need happening. And that's the thought I had. Was
I'm sure you'll be back in a second. There you are.
okay. Yeah, I think my internet had a blip, so sorry about
We're
that.
talking about random shit.
Yeah, I was like,
No, it's okay.
so
I was like, well, I don't know what to do. I guess I'll try to talk about something.
no. So yeah,
um,
the panel, that's right. I was thinking about what if you had a panel of the extreme of either side? Is you have the Me Too feminist woman, then you have the red pill MGTOW woman. Then you'd have maybe a few people in the middle, and you could have it'd be a three-way, unfortunately, because that's how it works: extremes and then the middle. And then you can have that
Uh-huh.
conversation where they bring their own, like how a regular debate does it, where they just bring their um what statement, whatever it is they do in the beginning, their opening statement, right? The opening statement of why they believe in what they believe, and why and just the things they see around them and stuff and all that. And then have that conversation or debate going from there, because with technology, we've opened a Pandora's box there's no going back to. I'm sorry. There's no. It's like with the AI stuff. Yes, people will complain about the art stuff. People will complain about this or that about it. But once the box has been opened, there's no going back. I'm sorry to tell you, it's been that way.
Right.
It's been that way for all technologies. Once Gutenberg invented the printing press, there was no going back from that. Once you
Yeah.
once you invented the cell phone, which the 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 black cell phone, there was no going back from that. As technology progresses, there is no going back to before, because this newfound freedom and the new technology has made the convenience of living a little easier. Not by much, just a little. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
when you start looking over that stuff, it just we're like, you can't put back in what's already out. It's just not gonna happen. And people complain about till Kingdom
Yeah.
Come, but they'll be dead before it even gets any better. So, but that's just me. That's just me. I don't know what
Yeah,
your
I don't
thoughts are.
think I think social issues are going to be never ending. Like
Yeah.
people are just very complex. Like that's the explanation for it is there's I don't know. But then with the population and stuff, the drastic decrease in procreation or whatever since the 80s, this generation like absorbed that.
Yeah.
Because I think that was kind of starting in the 60s. And then you have elements like um, birth control, changing and advancing and
Hmm.
things like that. And that is going to cause like a huge change. And then culturally, I don't know. I've felt a lot of and maybe this is normal. Like maybe it's really normal for young people. Maybe a lot of young people throughout history have been like very cynical about having children.
Hmm.
But it seemed worse like when I was growing up and like when I got into like my 20s and things, it would almost be like a trendy hipster thing to be like kids are gross, I hate kids.
Yeah.
Uh but also I realize that it is partially like just a being young thing, and I have a lot of resentment about it because I would like hear certain jokes like over and over again
Hmm.
of a certain topic like that were like kind of um like cruel to children, and I
Hmm.
always found that like bizarre.
Yeah.
I was just like, I don't really find that funny. Like, children are kind of my like that's where I like. I don't know. I don't think a lot of that's funny. I can laugh at a joke. I can laugh at like completely absurd like statements about things and realize somebody's coming from like a place of absurdity
Right.
and they're just saying it because it's gonna cut the tension in the room or something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There was also like this like thing about like hipsters always annoyed me, and like I'm like I don't know what I'm supposed to like give you reverence for, like your hairstyle or like the fact that you spend hours on your looks or
Yeah.
whatever. So even their jokes annoyed me, and that could be part of it. But like I found this very like cynical, this super cynical like perspective on children, calling them parasites.
Hmm.
Also, I noticed like when I was growing up, there was like a lot of horror movies that included children, and it
Yeah.
like kind of seems to like go on and on. And I understand why, like, of course, in horror, you're going to use everything. Like,
Yeah.
everything could be scary. So,
Hmm.
of course, like, eventually you're going to get to like a possessed child or, a demon child or whatever. Like, I get it. Like, that's just how it's gonna progress. But I do think like stuff like that is weird, because children are not, generally I would say it's very rare to have like a little, evil kid or whatever. So I just don't think that like exists. So it, in general, I'm
Yeah.
sure there's exceptions to every rule, but
Yeah.
um but yeah, I think the perspective on being a parent in the modern, like in the last what 40, that's 40 years from the 80s, like, and then
Mhm.
prior, I think it was going on prior to that like culturally, um things were shifting to such an extent where like this idea of having a family, two parents and children, just kept getting degraded
Mhm.
culturally, and like this isn't good, and then divorce like becomes more popular, or like people are cavalier about it. It seems that they're cavalier about it.
Mhm.
But I would say they're also cavalier about getting married, like in the first place. Like the decision to get married, it seems like, isn't taken very seriously.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
And
Mhm.
I actually had this idea like a while ago. It's so it makes me feel stupid when
Okay.
I think of like something I would do to fix like a social problem, because
Yeah.
I'm just like, yeah, I mean, what, I'm not going to do that. Like, who's going to do this? Like, but I think back to like kind of prior, I don't know, in, I would say in the 50s and like earlier than that,
Mhm.
it would be common for like young people to have dances pretty regularly, especially for like teenagers. You
Right.
would like do dances and stuff, but they were more, they actually had like, I don't know, I guess maybe I'm thinking of like a Victorian era even, like, and from then on, where there was like some etiquette to it, where it was
Yeah.
actually, you know, kids getting dressed up, and like I almost think that like for young people, it
Mhm.
would be good for them to interact more in a,
Yeah.
you know, in some chaperoned sort of way
Mhm.
or whatever. And I think it would be good if like women and boy, or young girls and boys were like kind of not taught,
Yeah.
but like encouraged to interact more so that they can learn about like, but I do think for young people, it would be useful to actually like teach them about like respecting each other, and like that you can say no in a way without hurting someone, that it's not a that you shouldn't be scared when someone asks you on a date or has a crush on you, that there's like a kind way to reject someone or to say no, that it's okay to say no.
Mhm.
There's also like a way to treat people with respect and hold your boundaries at the same time. Like, I think it would be good, because I see the way I was and the way young people are sometimes, where they're very like cagey about these things. It's like no wonder why they won't reach out to each other anymore, because it's like somebody might humiliate you on social media if like something goes wrong, or they might reject you in an extremely harsh way, and
Mhm.
that's all like fear-based stuff. So it's sort of like, if you could help people just interact more, like they would learn how to do it better,
You're right.
because that's how, through experience, you like learn about those things. But you can't force somebody to like care about other people's feelings, and you
Mhm.
can't force somebody to like um try to be thoughtful with other people. Some people are, I think of it this way, like I won't get connected with somebody that's like in a self-destruct mode. Like if
Mhm.
that's obvious about their life,
Yeah.
I'm not going to involve myself with that, because I literally don't have the resources to help someone in that situation. So I won't like become a part of their life, in other words, if they're in like a self-destruct mode. And some people really behave that way. Like a lot of the things they do is very like, instant gratification,
Oh yeah.
and then they reject it. Like they're done with it. Like it's, like it's just like everything is casual to them. And I think that's rooted in like not living intentionally, not having an intention or a goal for your life.
Mhm.
And when you don't have like an idea about what you want your life to be, when you don't value your life, that's like an issue. And then when you don't have like an intention or a goal of like what you want to be or do, or where you want your life to go,
Mhm.
then your actions are going to be very chaotic because
Yeah.
you're not actually being thoughtful about like what you do and how it affects yourself and others and all that stuff. So sometimes I think, and I think that can produce such bad results that it appears evil. Like
Right.
it can appear like somebody is being malicious when actually they're just being thoughtless. Like
Mhm.
they didn't intend to hurt you or intend to, whatever, but they also didn't care not to. Like they
Mhm.
didn't care enough either way to
Mhm.
like treat you with respect or not,
Yeah.
like they weren't even thinking much. But that can appear malicious too. So it's like it's hard to, but some people are malicious, so it's like
Yeah.
hard to say sometimes.
Yeah, it's like with the whole thing of mind reading where you always hear those things of like the what is it what's the one thing where it's like the whole where to go to eat thing, right? You know, you name a couple things, but that's not the right one, and then the one you always go to is the right one, but she didn't say it in the first place. It's like I'm I I can't read your mind, so why not just say it? I think there's a there's right
Yeah.
there's a time of introduction, right? Like the puppy love thing. Like it doesn't. I mean, there's a thing with obsession, but nowadays it'd be hard because you have this thing, you have this thing right here, and this and that and all that stuff, and you would basically you in essence have to take that out of the equation in order for the fear to be overcome because that's the starting point, right? Like you were talking about the dances, in order to start that point, you would have to get rid of the thing that's going to be the distraction. And yes, there's going to be some
Yeah.
awkwardness. Yes, there's going to be some people who want to do it. But at the end of the day, no one's dying. No one's getting bitten, hopefully. Um,
Mhm.
and no one's, and maybe no one's going to remember about it tomorrow. The thing of it is we got to get comfortable in having a conversation instead of just spewing each other off like you said, like we're sheddable. And I think some people come to terms to accept that, whether it be something they grew up in their environment or, it's just that internal feeling where it's like, I'm not really into wanting to get something permanent, so why not just go bam, bam, bam? Doesn't make
Yeah, which is like funny. You could live like that, like especially if you just communicate that. If
mm,
you just like tell people what you're really like trying to do or what you're
mm,
really about, then people that aren't interested will exit, and like people, and there will be people that are interested in what you're doing most likely.
yeah,
But like a lot of people just don't express themselves at all.
mm,
Like they don't even try to build connections with people because there's so much fear involved,
yeah,
or um, or they don't like tell people what's really going on in their head. So when they are connecting with people, they're not really connecting, like they're not really building a relationship because they're being like, they're just leaving everything under the surface. Like they're
yeah,
just being, have superficial relationships, in other words. And a lot of those are going to be like strategic. Like a lot of superficial relationships are going to be about like, what can this person like help bring into my life? Like, are their social connections going to help me?
mm,
Or like some kind of weird motive, like, oh, maybe I'll get something out of this.
yeah,
Or, it's like a lot of superficial connections aren't even based on like a true interest in like, oh, who are you? You're interesting. I'm
yeah,
curious about who you are,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and it's funny too because you you see that quite a lot. You see that quite a lot, and uh, I think people. I understand why someone would be afraid to be too honest because you want to have some decorum of that personal relationship, but to be honest in a sense with like someone you're dating in that beginning stages of a relationship that could lead to marriage or in a marriage, and it's sort of just rocky bumps. The the biggest the There you go. Put another log in.
Yeah, I need to. Last time we talked, my fire went out by the time we were done talking, and I was like too
Cold.
tired to start a new fire
Yeah.
because it actually takes a while to.
Oh no. No, but hey, it is nice to have something that bit rustic. I do like having a fireplace, although uh, uh my my parents had a wood burning stove in the basement, and we had it go the out smoke go through our chimney, but they years later they got in trouble with that with the city, so there's like they couldn't do it anymore. So it's like because it can keep
Well,
your house warm very well if your house is well insulated. Um, but
yeah,
any but
I know smoke and stuff, like, especially this is like a very small house, so
yeah,
it's definitely part of the air I breathe. It's like it is what it is.
right.
But
So and the no, sorry, but I like
cheaper, cheaper than electric, so
oh
that's
yeah.
all I care about.
Yeah, I appreciate the rustic a little more, though I don't agree with the outhouse. That's the one thing I won't agree with because I don't want to travel. It's really cold out. I don't want to travel and sit on something cold like
I don't want to see that either. That does sound terrible. There's like a wall heater in my bathroom, so I use that all the time. Like if I go in the bathroom, I just like put on the heater when it's cold because
nice.
otherwise it's pretty cold. But
And you're like, okay, okay, get the shower. Oh, oh.
fun in the bathroom when it's cold. Like everything, everything is harder when it's like freezing.
You
Yeah,
you you sit down and you wonder why you can't get up anymore because you're stuck to the seat.
terrible. Yeah, it's great.
Oh goodness. So and that's the question, and leading to that, the question I wanted to ask is, where do you see yourself in that equation? Because I know you've talked about what you've learned from your past relationships, but now that uh, you're an older lady, not mean in any sense. Now that
No, I am. Yeah.
now that you're an older lady, you have a little bit more wisdom and you're still growing, of course, but where do you see yourself, or have you even seen yourself in essence, or you just kind of just moving through life sort of thing?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Yeah, I've thought about it a lot.
Mhm.
Like what do I want? And the problem I run into is like I'm very results oriented or something, or like it's
Hmm.
like it's hard for me to dream sometimes because I am a dreamer type. Like
Hmm.
I think of, how life can be better, like especially little things like, oh, there's all these little things about life I can enjoy.
Hmm.
Um just small experiences, but when it comes to people, uh like a relationship is definitely part of what I want in my life. Like I don't want to be alone forever.
Yeah.
So like I see myself with someone, but um there's all this like practical uh issues with that where um
Yeah.
it's complicated. It's so complicated to have like a relationship with somebody, and to I don't want to jump into a relationship. That's one of the issues I'm having is like I'm that type of person actually. I'm very passionate and I feel I know about somebody, like I know, I can trust my instinct
Hmm.
about people much better now than I could before. But I would always act very instinctually on like an attraction or something like that. Like, or if we had a good rapport, me and another person, like then I would connect with them like too fast, maybe.
Yeah.
And then you get to know somebody and then you realize it's not correct, like it's not a good or
Mm.
healthy connection.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to put myself or someone else through that again. But I don't really know a good method of like getting to know somebody on the level it would take to like figure out if you're compatible in a relationship. And I'm not the type of person, I'm not gonna like go on a date with some guy and like see if he checks all the boxes or something. So I'm not going to talk to somebody. I'm not going to talk to somebody like they're an object, like I'm scouring to see if they, fit all my expectations. That's a
Right.
weird way to treat people.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to talk to somebody that way, which is like, but then I see why women do it, because they get very like serious about, I want to be in a relationship, so I'm going to take this very seriously. And they kind of want, like, I've heard of women doing this, sort of interrogating on a date, or but I'm not willing to communicate with somebody like that. It's like
Right.
we either get along and we laugh and
Yeah.
we have things enough in common, we enjoy each other's company.
Yeah. Yeah.
um yeah, so it's like I'm looking for more of like a feeling that it feels right to me,
Yeah.
rather than like seeing if there's all these technical compatibility marks, that work or whatever. But um so a relationship is definitely, I used to want to have kids, like when I was kind of still new on Twitter and whatever. I used to tweet about that a lot, like that I wanted to have kids, and
Mm.
not a lot, but I would mention it semi frequently. Now I'm going to turn 39 soon, and I've pretty much like given up on it in the last few years. Like I don't want to, but I also don't want to hold on to this dream of being a mother,
Mm.
and I don't want to be heartbroken about it. So I'm
Right.
not willing to like attach myself like as to the point where I'm, this is a goal of mine. I'm going to be a mom, because I'm going to be devastated if I build everything around this idea.
Yeah.
I don't want to be delusional about it, and like I'm definitely going to become a mother. It's like that's not really something people decide all that often. Like you can, obviously, now with technology you can uh force fertility, but even then, right, all these like these women will pay to become, to like make sure that they're fertile,
Mm.
but meanwhile they're stabbing themselves with needles. Like a lot of it is uncomfortable. They're having lots of doctors visits, and it goes, like, to me it's like no wonder that they still have fertility issues through this process, because they're stressing a lot. Like I think a lot of health problems are actually related to stress.
Yeah.
um i I think there's plenty to like back me up on that, but I think it's like an under, um like it's not considered enough, like how much stress plays a role in like health problems.
Yeah.
And so when a woman's going through this like in vitro, or IVF like process or whatever, and I think it creates stress levels to such an extent that it still makes it hard for them to conceive. And then it's no wonder that like once they're done with this and they stop doing it, that then all of a sudden they get pregnant. They have triplets, they have, twins or
Yeah.
triplets or whatever, because it's like they finally relaxed and like let it go,
Mm.
and that's when it happened. And I do think life is a bit more of a God thing. I think it's a little laughable, like how much we try to control that thing, because I think that's kind of the point, is like that's not something we're supposed to decide. But
Mm.
and I think that's why it doesn't work, like, as it's not 100% like success rate with that, because I don't know if we're really supposed to be dabbling in that,
Yeah. No,
but
and you're not wrong in that remark. I
yeah.
just wanted to say uh if she is her if anyone doesn't know, she has satellite, so her audio visual is gonna lag a bit. So don't worry about it. She's still alive, obviously. It's just she has
I have
satellite,
a
so
satellite
yeah.
connection. I'm so sorry.
No, you're all right. No, I just wanted to make sure because I'm sure someone's gonna ask later in the comments like, why is her mouth so? Is there something wrong with? No, it's just she has satellite, so it's okay. She's still alive. She's still with us. I can hear her. It's all good. If I have to do sign language, I will. Uh, but no, you're not
Oh
wrong.
well.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong though. I do think, like you said, stress plays into it because there are always those couples who like, if they do get married, they like have a kid after this, whatever. Um, but you're not wrong in the compatibility factor. The compatibility factor. Yeah, I'm gonna start like I'm drinking, but I don't. Um, the thing of it is that it's very difficult. Cause I know a couple. who got married. They had kids. They have two girls, but they still ended up divorced. Now it's almost like they're better parents divorced than they were together. But I don't know what the situation led to it. I never asked because it's kind of like a personal thing. Um, but my thing is that you have those people out there who that happens, or like you said, that women get poked and prodded just to have a kid, like single mothers, or you see the stories of where they froze their eggs and the eggs are no longer useful. Um, it it's a whole bit in caboodle. And this is what something on both sides use, right? The MGTOW says you're done after this, no more. Even though back in the past it's like they were trying to have a 6-year-old have a kid. So I mean, yeah. But then the women on the other side are like, you know, all these, if you have a girl it's good, if you have a boy it's bad, and all this other stuff. It's just like I hate it when kids become the political object to defeat either side, and yet the obvious thing is that these people are going to take over your world. It's no longer be your world anymore. Obviously you're dead, but the thing of it is they're going to take over after the fact, and they're going to pass on that fact to the next fact, and that's how things and stories evolve, is because the originator of certain thing, a lesson, punishment, whatever, it evolves, it goes forward. Sometimes it'll drop, sometimes it'll continue to get worse. You
Yeah.
you can't think too like 20 years in the future, because obviously no one knows if they're going to be here tomorrow, unfortunately, but you have to give some future thought. And it's kind of saddening when everyone, almost everyone, almost everyone uses a child as a political or wedge point to make a point for their either bias or to fit their own personal narrative in there. And that's really disheartening, because there's a lot of parents. It's not nothing against them, but there are a lot of parents who take pictures of their kids and they post them online. Sometimes they cover the face, sometimes they don't. My feeling is that your unless it's for like a family community thing, whatever, your child's face should not be on there unless they put it on there, because
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
because you once you put your child's face on the internet, you invite the world to your child. Yes, they can't use Facebook, yes, they can't use Twitter, whatever, but down the road, when they can, the world has already been invited in to see your child, to see them grow up, because parents do that, right? They share, they show videos, they do all this stuff. And I'm not trying to put parents down. I'm just saying you invite the world once you put that photo of your kid out there, whether it's at birth or whether it's when they're 5. Once you put it out there, you invite the world onto your child, and they become the world's.
Yeah.
That's what happens with social
Yeah.
media.
That's a tough one because, like, that's a tough one because I would definitely like be. I would probably post something about being a parent. It would
Yeah,
probably be like so delightful to me and like such an exciting experience that I would probably want to share some things about it.
yeah.
Um, but I do think like there is this thing of consent, like where your kid is not choosing that. So I get what you're saying,
Mm,
and I can appreciate it in the way that I do think that kids should, be protected until they can make like decisions for themselves more like
yeah.
that, like how they want to interact with the world is probably a better thing to leave up to them.
Mm,
Um, and it is dangerous, I guess, in some ways to like post a lot of information about your kid or whatever, uh but I think it's more just I don't think that's gonna like n- necessarily negatively affect your kid, especially if it's like you said, just like family
mm,
time and like you're just sharing some like family moments.
yeah.
I think sometimes I'm a little bothered by like the way I hate talking about this honestly. Just be only like a bit like criticizing parents is like a
Right.
super like touchy thing. I
Right.
don't want to insult anyone
I
because I do think I
right.
don't have kids, so I don't know what it's like.
I would.
So I can't say,
Sorry. Go ahead.
yeah.
No, I'll let you continue. I just wanted to say the small part is I only criticize the context. Parent, not every parent's perfect. My parents aren't perfect. Your parents aren't perfect. Whatever. I want to just criticize on the context of why. I get it's to share for personal reasons, whatever. If it's not like a private group thing and it's for the world to see, because most places you don't have to have a account to that place in order to see the picture. Um, it's and don't get me wrong, I'm not coming after parents either. It's just the context of the situation. That's all I wanted to say. So if you want to continue what you were saying, that's all I want to say is the context of the situation. I want to get at, not like beat at parents or anything, because that that was the worst thing to do.
Yeah, I actually touched on this like in a in a conversation I had just earlier today was about like basically people putting a lot of labels on their kid. I
Mhm,
think is a little like I think people should be careful about doing that because kids will internalize these things. And I guess I could agree with you that if somebody were uh, posting a lot of information about their kid, like this is their developmental, issues, and these are their health issues. Sometimes you if you need support and you're asking for support to
mhm,
like help for medical bills or something like that, totally understandable. Um, I don't know if I, as an individual, would appreciate if my parent was like posting like things about learning disabilities or personality disorders I have when I'm 5 or whatever, and then I grow up
mhm,
into my 20s or whatever, and that stuff is like on the internet, it's like searchable or something like that. I like that would suck. I don't know if that's like great because I don't know if it's anybody's business like how a person is developing in life.
mhm,
One thing I don't like about diagnosing children like early on with like things is that they can grow out of that.
mhm,
And so if you share, or like they can sometimes like they can, change those things about themselves, or like they could get enough support where like it becomes less of an issue and stuff. So like does if I had a child, I would wonder like is it fair for me to like say the condition of my child when like maybe that might change and maybe they don't want to be defined by that. And
mhm,
I think people should be careful about like labeling their kids and talking about it in front of them. I think especially talking about those things in front of a child is a little dicey just
mhm,
because I wouldn't want the child to internalize like, oh, I have a learning disability. And then so I guess I can't learn very good,
mhm,
and like and then go on like it almost like could compound the problem
mhm.
where like you're telling them, you have this issue and then they feel like they can't defeat that.
Yeah.
Whereas there are some people that have like struggled with developmental issues and whatever, or learning disabilities, and they've been able to like overcome them. So I wouldn't want a kid to not know that like you can still like uh you know go after goals, and like don't let the way that the world define you
Mhm.
defines you,
Yeah.
don't let that like box you in or pigeonhole you, because uh you can really do a lot more than you think you can,
Right.
and you can do a lot more than people say you can,
Right.
so it's like I want kids to believe in themselves. That's always been like a thing for me,
Yeah.
where I want them to understand that they have a lot of opportunity and potential, and that they can, you know, uh,
Yeah.
whatever. I'm not a parent, so it's like it's tough for me to talk about that stuff. But I've babysat and stuff like that, and I've really always cared about the kids that I took
Right.
care of, and
You have an idea,
and I
but right, you have an idea and some experience, but to be in the actual space, you're not there. But that doesn't mean you
Yeah.
can't say something upon it because it's not. Yeah, because there's always a talk that people come down to parents for teaching a certain way or doing a certain way, and it's just like, but you're not the kid's parent, so why? And that's another thing too, is right. Parents share that thing about their kid, though. That's where that you know, I like you were saying earlier. I get that, but there's a point where sometimes people overshare. They overshare their life. They overshare, and of course, there's bad times or rant. Okay, but there's a lot of times where people overshare on the internet, and the internet is almost forever. So, and anyone can come and just mock
Right.
you and all this stuff, and it can be such a compounding factor on you in a negative sense, right? Um,
Yeah.
but for me, from my viewpoint, because may have babysat in the past, but I wasn't always the greatest babysitter. Not like they got hurt or anything. It's just that it became less and less of wanting to do it, and so I eventually was like one, and then that was it. Uh, but
I would do it if it paid more. It just pays terrible.
yeah, and in this
So
economy,
I would do it if it paid better. But yeah, and that's yeah, like I and that's I mean, I get it because childcare is already expensive for people.
yeah,
So it's like
yeah,
it's hard to say like people should get paid more for that, um but I think, there's a sad cycle to it where like you're not attracting the best of the best with the way that it's paid um
oh yeah, and horror
and
stories.
that really yeah, I do feel concerned sometimes about like childcare and elder care and like,
Mm-hmm.
just I know that you're dealing with individuals and if they're having a bad day, your kid doesn't mean as much to them as they do to you. And unfortunately, like shit can happen. Like
Mm-hmm.
even when like kind of like what I was saying earlier is like if somebody's doing something thoughtlessly,
Mm-hmm.
it can cause like dramatically bad results sometimes almost to the point where you'd wonder like is this person a terrible person, is this person like malicious? But if you're dealing with little children, I stopped doing it because I was terrified that like if something did happen, if a kid got hurt on my watch,
Yeah,
that would be extremely difficult for me to deal with. Like
yeah,
and it scared me away from like doing it.
yeah.
Um, I tried it as a second job when I was in my 20s again. Like I did it when I was a teenager, and then like later I knew of a lady who ran a daycare from her house,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember just feeling tons of anxiety about like the kid condition of the house. Like there were just some issues with like the door that went to the outside was like kind of needed to be fixed. And there were, it wasn't baby proofed. Like, not that that's the best practice, but
Yeah,
like it wasn't baby proof to a point where I felt comfortable dealing with like multiple children. Like I'd have like 3 to 6 at any given time. So that's a lot for one person. Like that's also a lot for one person to take care of, which that's what makes me crazy about public schools is I'm like, it's hard to watch over 4 kids at the same time.
yeah,
It's extremely hard to watch over 16 to 30 children in a room.
yeah,
And I do think it should be done a lot better, but who cares what I think? But like, um, I mean, really, like, it's like it's all my ideas are
yeah.
pretty pointless, but just because no one, it's like, and I don't know what I'm talking about exactly, but it's like, I do think that it's kind of insane to have one teacher to like a room of 30 kids.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. I mean, I wouldn't call it pointless. Yes, you'd be like, well, you're not a parent, you don't know. Okay, but there's nothing wrong with an out of box thought that makes you stop think, I never thought of that before.
I'm very sensitive about it. I've known enough parents to like shut my fucking mouth when it comes to excuse me, to, like,
You're right.
to
You're
shut my
right.
mouth when it comes to opinions about parenting. Like
Yeah.
people, it's easy for people to feel judged because I think it is difficult enough that it's like if someone doesn't have that experience and they're telling you like you're doing it wrong,
Mm.
it's
Very demeaning.
yeah, it's kind of yeah, exactly. Especially coming from somebody who doesn't understand or doesn't have kids. But even when parents are fighting about like how they would do it differently or
Yeah.
something, that can get really heated too. So it's a sensitive subject. It's like you're raising human beings, so everybody knows that that's actually like pretty meaningful
Yeah.
thing to be doing.
Yeah.
And so if somebody feels like they're inadequate in that way or that they're not like protecting their children that well or it's touchy, you
Yeah.
know.
It's it's very fun to watch. It is a sort of it's sort of almost like a psychology class in real life where you watch these parents. Well, if you just stick with the parent, parent on parent thing, like you're doing that wrong, and then the parent says, "Well, you're doing that wrong." Sorry, you sort of see this thing where it's like, but what point are they trying to prove though? They're both parents. Yeah, you can get stuff wrong, but the important thing is do you love your kid? Do you want them to succeed? I'm not saying you have to give, you have to be those parents like, oh, we have to give up everything for the child and all this stuff. I'm like, no, you understand, understand. One, first, for me, the first point of contention is that you came from this very spot a long, long time ago. You may not remember everything about it, but there are probably some things you remember. What would what would you like to, in a more positive sense, what would you like to change that would help a, a child better to be curious about the world? Because as an adult there's a point where some more than not, adults lose their wonderment. You look up at the stars and you just like, I can see that tomorrow. Or a sunrise, right? Well, the sunrise is tomorrow. I'm sorry, you're not guaranteed tomorrow. And the wonderment of life gets kind of lost because we get so jumbled with bills, politics, economy stuff, neighbors, and all this, and neighborhood thing, and just like there's only so much bandwidth one person has, and it just gets sucked up in everything else. Especially when you have a kid, it gets sucked up in a kid, right? You protect,
Yeah, yeah,
feed, and clothe, and all this stuff. And again,
yeah,
the again, it's the things you say aren't as pointless. There's always a nice idea to have something said that's outside the box, but it's when it becomes a demanding factor that I believe it's where it changes the scenario. Because you could bring up something to a parent, and they could obviously not listen to you or called you a piece of crap or something worse or something real worse. But the point of the matter is like
yeah,
you're not coming out of this stage of what is it? That you're not coming to this place of mean, you can't do anything right sort of thing. You're coming from a place of, look, I don't know nothing about parenting, but doesn't this seem a little off to you, or something to that effect? And maybe it'll go through, maybe it won't.
yeah.
But
Try
yeah,
that.
so
Yeah, no, I mean, I do think like if you're talking to people that are willing to have a real conversation, you're fine. You know,
yeah,
you can probably ask questions, and it's
mm,
safe to do so. There's a lot of people that aren't really interested in having a real conversation. They're more interested in like who's right and like online. There's a lot of like energy a
yeah,
lot of times. So sometimes if you even say, I mean, I'm guilty of it too. Like sometimes people comment on something that I posted and I'll assume I know what they mean
mm,
and I'll respond very defensively.
mm,
And then I find, sometimes they like soften and they're like, oh no, I didn't mean it that way. And I
mm,
realize I took it wrong.
mm,
Um, or sometimes it gets really combative, and I don't have a lot of patience for like the debate kind of approach anymore because
yeah,
I notice that this person is playing a game. They're not having a conversation. They're not
yeah,
trying to have a conversation. They're playing a game with me,
yeah,
and it's like, how can I, how can I make her look stupid? How can I be right?
yeah,
How can I win this conversation? It's like, well, I'm not playing a game. Like, I'll have a conversation with you, but I'm not gonna, you know, uh, try to win an argument on the internet. Like I have zero interest in that. What do you get out of that anyway?
yeah.
Like, do you get internet brownie points? Like, I don't, I mean, I guess you do in a sense, but it's
Yeah.
like that's not something I'm willing to like be aspirational about, is like, oh, people on the internet are going to think I'm cool because I won this argument or I made this person like, it doesn't excite me.
Yeah.
I'd rather be like appreciated for something else if I'm, online at least, or,
Yeah. It
even yeah, in life as well.
Yeah, and it's short lived too. It's very short lived. It's the dopamine hit and then it's gone. You're like, gotta get it again. And I'm guilty of it too.
Yeah.
I don't get me wrong, I'm human too. I've been guilty of it. I could be guilty of a lot of things, but
We've all argued on the internet sometimes, and there's a place and time for it, and it can be very fun. Like,
yeah.
it can be fun, and I do kind of understand. Well, I've been in that place, let's say, and when I was in that place
Mm,
of, like, wanting to argue with people online, the subject I chose was pretty, like, or the topic that interested me was kind of heavy. So the arguments could get um, really nasty.
mm,
And I realized I don't want to do this anymore. I
right.
don't want to interact with people like this anymore,
Mm-hmm.
because the people I was interacting with would take it to such like a dark place.
Oh.
They would be so kind of disgusting and demeaning
Mm-hmm.
and like cruel that I was like, I don't even want to interact with people like this ever, anymore.
Yeah.
And I also didn't really love the energy that I was coming to with it, because I realized, what am I doing here? So I've picked this topic to like argue with people about, but
Mm-hmm.
what is the result?
Yeah.
Because e- every time I'm having these arguments, I don't feel that I'm changing these people's mind,
Mm-hmm.
even though I feel I'm right. I
Mm-hmm.
feel I'm making good points,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not listening. And
Yeah.
it's because you're not having a real conversation with a person like that. So I
Yeah.
realized a lot of like, for me anyway, like a lot of the internet, like, um, bickering and stuff is for sport. It's
Yeah.
fun. It's like, it gives you something to do. It makes you feel like alive and kind of, and
Scene.
being aggravated is actually more energetic than being depressed. So
Yeah.
you can sit home alone and, watch TV all day, or you can go online and like you can have this sort of invigorating, even if it's angry, that's more exciting than being depressed and
Mm-hmm.
just feeling sad and empty.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of connect this, like when people are being like all debate me, bro,
yeah.
online. I it was like, "Oh, you're lonely." Like, I get it.
yeah.
You're very lonely. You want some interaction.
Yeah.
Like, I see that, I'm not that nice about it, but it depends on what they say.
I would hate.
But that's how I
Yeah.
look at it. I'm like, this person is just feeling empty inside and like
Yeah.
wants interaction. And the way it's like a kid acting out, like who, like, it's like a person
Mm,
who wants attention. They need to be acknowledged. They need somebody to hear them, and like
mm,
they want to be seen and heard,
mm.
and no one's listening to them, so they're acting out. And then trolls are like a whole separate thing. I have
Yeah.
no idea what's going on there, and I'm not even going to pretend to
Right.
know. Like, not that it's bad. Like, I do find some trolls to be like really creative and funny,
Yeah.
and they kind of make it fun internet, like to like see what they're doing.
Right.
They're kind of more obvious about it, and they seem to attack people that like deserve it. But then there's some people who are just assholes and they call themselves trolls, and I'm like, okay,
You're like,
kind of
yes.
seem like an asshole for like, I
Yeah.
guess, because they're not very creative. Like
Yeah.
their insults aren't very creative. The people that they choose to insult, it's
Mm-hmm.
like weird choice, bro.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a bunch of like aspects to it where I'm like, yeah, I can't respect this person. Like they're not actually doing anything with this like creative urge to like poke at people. There
Yeah.
is like a fun gesture like thing you can do with that, but not
Yeah.
everybody's pulling it off, sort of.
No, no, you're not wrong. I've seen one of those many too, and the internet can be a fun place, but it also be the the casting point of while it this you can't rely on social media to be a representation of all of humanity. You can see the psychology of it, And social media has given this YouTube was built so that anyone and everyone could have a speaking forum. Same with Facebook and everyone else. Everyone. Well, if you're not connected to them, it might not work as well. But everyone can have the way of saying their voice on this World Wide Web. The issue is that everyone can have a voice to say something on the World Wide Web, and
Yeah.
I do feel
It's a
like
blessing and
it's a
yeah.
tool. The internet is a tool, and we treat it like, we treat it like it's the thing that's, we can play around with. We can play around with it, but the obvious thing is that we can turn this amazing tool into the most destructive backhand uh explosion of
Yeah.
death there is. And I I always find myself asking the questions like, why, like you were saying, is it attention or whatever? And I do kind of think that we all, in some way, want some attention on us because we are, in essence, lonely. We, the internet has become this sort of going outside to meet your neighbor now, right? Where it's just like your neighborhood. You might talk to your neighbor, they might not like you, or they might like you, and it's sort of that back and forth rejection. Nowadays, you just go online and you find a whole community of people like that agree with
Yeah.
you, which
They
is,
agree with you. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and
It's intoxicating sort of, right?
yeah,
It's
oh
like
yeah, well,
yeah.
it's like going to,
Well, the
go ahead.
what's funny to me about Twitter is like everyone is on there for attention.
Mm-hmm,
Like I think there's a small category like or small groups of people where like they're really trying to do something creative,
mm-hmm,
they're sharing their art, they're sharing their work or they're sharing something that actually is meaningful in their life or they're running a business and they're promoting their business online, which
mm-hmm,
is also a great way to use it. They some kind of they have some kind of campaign, something they're promoting or a book or
yeah,
whatever. So I think if you're really doing something with your social media, like more power to you, that's great.
mm-hmm,
But like everyone who's not doing that, like everyone who doesn't have a specific intention for their account, like why they're there, everyone else to me is on the same plane, like we're all on the same like level because I just think it's funny because sometimes people will kind of try to figure out a value system for that, like well your account sucks because blah, or your account is great because this, and I'm like
yeah,
yeah, but we're all just on here trying to get attention, because we felt empty in a moment, we
yeah,
felt lonely, so we looked at our phone.
yeah,
Like, there's not a whole lot, I don't know how to take a ton of pride in that because
yeah,
I know what I'm doing, like, with my social media is I'm trying to fill, like, a void of, like, loneliness, it's like I reach out and say some silly thing and I'm like, "Oh, people will, I could have a conversation about this or this might make people laugh or whatever."
yeah,
It's not very serious,
mm-hmm.
what I'm doing with it. So I just think it's funny how serious people take it when literally the majority of people are just on there for like something to do when they feel bored.
Yeah, and it sort of becomes a weed, or at least the best way to describe it is weed, because a weed kind of, if you don't take care of it, it spreads up, grows. Think of it this way: most dates, they're usually just on their cell phones looking at something new, or when I've gone to a restaurant, or by myself, because sometimes eating alone is enjoyable. Not always, but sometimes. When I go to a restaurant,
Yeah,
more than yeah, more than not, people who are together, whether they be family or on a date, they're on their phones. And then you
yeah,
ask, yeah, you ask yourself the question, why though? You have someone in front of you, ask questions, even if it's a stupid one, like when you talk about, it's pointless to talk about the thing if you're not a parent, but it's not really, because it's just a discussion. You're not really telling a parent, unless you're like demanding a parent change and do what you say. It's
right.
really, it's
I'm allowed to have opinions. That's true,
yeah,
and that is what I try to defend myself with.
yeah,
Is like I just have opinions.
yeah.
I'm
But
not telling you what to do.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm human. I'm not always right. I'll admit that. Well, on what, I don't know,
yeah,
but I'm not always right. But the thing of it is, at least I won't have the
I might even venture to say I'm really right.
my accuracy in right is about less than 50. but but
I would say that's fair. That way
mm,
no one gets mad at me.
yeah, so yeah, that too. And people are like, well, I did say I wasn't right all the time. Come on. So, but anyway, I don't. It's almost 8:30 here. I don't know if you need to go or not. I don't want to keep you if you do, but I really, again, I really, um, from the bottom of my heart, I do appreciate you coming out here and talking to me about anything really, because it. I mean, we do generalize, we do kind of generally go into the relationship stuff because that's the big thing, but to have someone on the other side, I mean, because I know you're not too far away from I am. You know what state I'm in, but to be able to have that connection of talking to someone, just have the conversation go anywhere. Because we've stayed in within an area, but we've gone pretty much all over the we've gone pretty much all over the
I
place.
know.
So
I don't even know if we really talked about what you wanted to talk
no,
about, but
it's fine. But
I
we've
think
got
we covered some of
we've stayed in the
yeah.
vein of. But no, I from the bottom of my heart, I do thank you because to have opportunities to talk to other people. There's another person I've talked to as well. Her name is Toasty, and she's has her own difficulties because I did like one of these a while ago. But my ultimate goal for me, and I don't know what you'll do for you, but my thing for me is I want to be able to talk to more people, whether they be big and famous or not. And people aren't always open to that because they're afraid of, well, either they don't have the tech to do it, they're afraid they don't look good or whatever. And my point is, what do you have to say? What do you want to say? I mean, as long as it stays within a limit, because TOS and all that stuff, right? Because YouTube likes to be dictator of the world. Oh, I'm sorry. So, so it's yeah, it's really a pleasure because I know I'm not a perfect person, and I may have said some things that you don't agree with, but honestly, you are a as far as I've seen through your Twitter, because I can't see beyond that because I don't too far away to even talk to you in real life. You do seem like someone who's learned a lot, who, whether or not the vice is great or not, you do give something if people ask, and you are very selfless in that. So, but again, I do appreciate you even want to talk to me at all because I'm probably not the best person to always talk to, but there's something there to talk about. So I do appreciate that. But then
Yeah,
no,
no, I've been really enjoying this. I've been like trying to like build more on like building or yeah, I don't know, building connections, but also in a different way, like
mm,
more platonic connections, more like having conversations about life and stuff
mm,
like that is really it's what I'm interested in. I
yeah,
like talking,
yeah,
but I don't start conversations very often. So,
yeah,
but once it's going, I'm like into it. So I
mm,
realize that's something I should do more of, not less of. So I'm trying to do that,
mm,
and trying to actually interact with like people who, you know, uh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't really I think we learn about ourselves
yeah,
this way. So
yeah,
it's like my friend Alex, she just really described it really well at some point that like we need to witness each other. Like there's something to that. Like there's a lot of power in like
mm,
someone hearing you
mm,
and just being like, yeah,
yeah.
just interaction is actually really good. It's akin to touching grass. No lie.
Uh oh, she's bringing up the young stuff again. Oh, you old peep in your cantankerous ways. Don't worry, I'm not too far behind you. Anyway, yeah. Uh, no, you're not wrong. And even if it's just this for her, because I mean, honestly, I would, if my finances were ever in the greatest place, I would love to one day get to meet you and have those IRL conversations because again, you never know. Again, you never know how those IRL. I'm not a serial, I'm not like the bad evil person or whatever, but to get to be able to have that opportunity is a lot more precious and maybe powerful because you're right in front of that person
Yeah.
saying, "Wow, you don't look like you do on the camera, but it's that's just something entirely different." but no,
Yeah, I
it's
went on a hike with someone from Twitter like 3 or uh, a few weeks ago, and
wow.
like I think I think that improved my whole week that week. Like just being able to, because I'll go on hikes here by myself.
Mm.
Um, there's something, especially if I'm going for a hike to make so.
No, hi again. Yeah,
I
the
saw that you went, but I was like, I'm not gonna. But yeah, like it's just relationships can be really complex with
yeah,
people. I don't like the idea that I'm gonna let someone down or upset someone or disappoint them. So I
yeah,
find relationships to be kind of scary and complex in that way, and it can take me a while to like
get used to.
um it can take, I don't know, it can just take me a little while to like really feel safe with
So,
someone or whatever
mm,
to but I'm trying to work on that where like feel less afraid to begin with and just
yeah.
be myself, and it seems to work better that way. So
Yeah, the of course the big thing is always working on yourself, which is always something, whatever it may be, working out or whatever, is always something in this whole wide world, and especially through the wide web, where you could find something that positively, because I know there's negative stuff. Be like, oh, what about bomb making? Like, no, no, not that, not that. That's not what I'm talking about. The positive stuff where it improves your life. Maybe not to like the grand,
it can be positive, it
yeah,
just depends on how it's applied.
yeah, yeah.
Just kidding.
It's that Mentos one with the Diet Coke, guys. All right, come on.
Yeah.
And people are like, why is it so sticky in here? What the? But no, it's crazy how it can improve uh well, in person anyway, in person where you can learn a bit more, because my thing is like with Twitter, right? We're texting, right? We're going to texting, and even on the Twitter part, you can't see their face. You can't see the emotion they have. You can't see how to react. How they are they laughing? Are they sarcastic? Whatever. And when you can
Yeah,
see,
that's right. We talked about this last time.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
When you can see someone's face, when you can, do more than just you can have that other 50%. It improves your ability to interact better, and I think that's also another thing. Like when you're talking about trolls and stuff, where you don't know how sarcastic or if they're being mean about it or not, because it's all just words, and it's you reading their words in your head, and you're reading them as you
Yeah.
think they would, and so that's the whole point of factor right there. And no, you're not wrong. Getting used to someone, because it's that trusting factor. It's always a trusting factor, and you want to be able
Yeah.
to trust them enough. So, so
Like, just getting to know, especially like a man,
yeah,
like tricky because sometimes like trying to just talk to a man for the first time, um, sometimes there's so much expectation in that already, like, and you can feel it, and
mm,
they'll like project it to you,
yeah,
like how much like it matters to them. But then when you get down to like practical details of like, yeah, but how are we going to meet, and stuff, and that's when I'll realize like, I don't know if this guy really wants a relationship. I think he wants to get to know me, so it's like I have a hard time
yeah,
trusting enough that
yeah,
like it's like, should I should I invest in this connection? Because if this person, especially on Twitter now with like men and stuff, like I tweet about how I'm feeling and stuff, and often that's like taken as an invitation or like that I feel lonely sometimes, sure.
yeah,
Like I'm in a place right now where it's like it's hard for me to take especially anyone on Twitter seriously
yeah,
in regards to a relationship.
yeah,
Like most of them are like so far away that I'm like, okay, yeah, we're gonna get to know each other, and then are you ever going to come and meet me? Am I ever going to know if like we have real chemistry between us, or
yeah,
like if we're compatible in a relationship? Like I can't tell those things by I've realized that by not by texting, not by even a video chat is insufficient. Like it's just not it's
mm,
not the same as being around someone and
yeah,
like spending time with them
yeah,
and how they treat you and how you treat them and the energy that you share and
Yeah.
and what you're capable of together and stuff.
Hmm.
Like none of that stuff is something you can find out online.
Yeah.
So I find that part really difficult is like I'm not looking for someone on Twitter at this point. Like I've especially when they like almost none of them live like close to me. So it's like
Yeah.
it's probably gonna hurt more to build a connection with this person and then find out that there's no practical way that we could be together. It's like, why would I do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't want them to be hurt either. I don't want to be hurt and I don't want to hurt people.
Yeah. As you said, you've experienced that enough already, and when the root grows deep, the pain is as much as the depth is. Uh, so
Yes.
that means
Yeah.
that
Good way to
also,
say it.
yeah, that also means I have to start looking up how much price tickets are going to be. But that's that no, don't you didn't hear that from me, no. One day, one day. Uh, but yeah, cause it is long distance relationships are things of they can happen, but it's a sacrifice in itself. And when the conversation comes that you say, it's been long enough. We've talked long enough. What are we going to do about it? And obviously, sometimes in the rare occasion, you may get that answer and it may work out. Other times, not so much. And my thing is that when people start living with each other, not, if they're family, whatever, but if, a couple start living with each other, living right off the bat once they get in a relationship is not a great idea because we've all seen that they sign something together and then they break up later and all that stuff. Like, if you're gonna live with each other, just get married. And saying that's kind of redundant because then it's like, well, what if we get divorced? Well, it's like, if you get married to get divorced, then you really weren't willing to stay married in the first place. So, like, it's a garden, man. You wanna get into it, you gotta work it. And I'm not talking work it. I'm talking like get that tiller out and start and start working it. So where are those begonias at? Where are they? So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, it definitely requires effort
yeah,
on both, but some people will like stress that it should be equal effort. Well, it's like nothing's nothing
equal,
between people is going to be like
equal.
perfectly equal.
Yeah,
So I think that's like a wrong, but I do think there should be like yeah, a significant effort on both people's parts,
yeah,
to be in a relationship, to be creative and that they want to like cuz to me a relationship, a romantic relationship when you're like finding a companion in life like it's a collaboration on life
mhm.
together
Oh
like
yeah,
you're deciding to like build a future together. It's like really an artistic creative endeavor and you have to actually every day approach it creatively like in some way there's going to be challenges and stuff so you have to be creative and like still somehow I don't obviously I don't think it's like every day you have to make sure you do this
mm,
set of things or something like that. It's not like that. It's not a science, it's an art. So it's something you have to like learn how this person loves and how they want to be loved
yeah,
and you want to receive their love when they're trying to give you love and you want to figure out when they want to feel that way and give them what they need and it's like it takes a lot of effort in finding and yeah so it's like I don't know you have to be creative and you have to really want the relationship to work and that has to be a continual effort. It
yeah.
can't just be like well now we're together so we should just be happy.
Here
It's
we
like
are.
no you have every day you have to like figure out like is there something we could do to like enjoy each other today like or is there something I could do to support you that would make you feel loved or just supported is good.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong there. That's a big fear I have is getting married to someone and then they just want to leave not too far after because I don't I'm
Yeah.
not perfect and I may be lacking in some areas in life, but it doesn't mean if I get married to you or whatever, that I'm going to be lazy about it because the obvious thing is that you don't want to get there and then it just have it end. I mean, it's gonna end because we get old and stuff, but you don't want it to end because someone decided to quit. I mean, it's not a job; it's a commitment. And commitments, well, I mean, on a job there's commitment some degree, but in life there's a commitment, and it can be good or bad. It will be both good and bad, and but the question you'll have to ask is it worth it,
Yeah.
and will you want to continue on it? Because again, like I said, it's a fear for me to want to get into that, and then all of a sudden they're just done. They don't. They're just gonna leave because it wasn't worth it. It's like, but I didn't get in it to leave. And of course you don't want to be have those things in your head, the daydreams or whatever, where you're like, yeah, see yourself arguing with them and all this stuff. And it's like, but if that happens, then I can just walk away quietly for a bit and come back and do that whole spiel. But it's not the end of the world. When you conclude it's the end of the world for your marriage, then the next one will be not much different. And I hate that.
Yeah,
I hate that. I hate
I
that
agree.
thought. I hate that thought, and I hate that feeling that it gives you. If you're just thinking about it. But that also makes it harder for others, or for continuing forward and just trying to go for a relationship, because you'll always have that mental picture. My thing is the future is as unpredictable as you know what will happen with the sun. We watch it, but it does its own thing. So, um, but no, I understand the sentiment well. It's just rejection and putting yourself out there is a tightrope, and if you slip off it, it's like so. You don't,
Yeah,
and
I think it's probably better to have more of those experiences and to become less afraid of them than it is to hide and avoid those experiences. Like you're going to get rejected, like
mhm,
things, aren't always going to work out. Like not everyone is going to like you, but I think before you make a commitment, you should really know you should know why you're committing to that person
yeah,
and why you trust them and why you love them, and like there should be a lot of thought put into like making a commitment to another person, and then they should also have those same kind of a real foundation of why they're with you.
mhm,
I felt this way when I met you, and you came through on this, and you proved to me this, and
mhm,
you showed me this, and I learned this from you, and it's the way they make you feel, and the way they enrich your life should be obvious to you. That way it's a healthy connection. It certainly shouldn't be something that um you know is causing you trouble and making you feel more divided in yourself, and like to me a healthy relationship shouldn't be one where you're constantly feeling fear and doubt. If you're in that place, it's either you need to work on yourself so that you're not constantly feeling fear and doubt,
right,
or you need to analyze the relationship and see why it feels unhealthy, because that wouldn't, that it shouldn't be like, does do they love me? That shouldn't be something you think of a lot in a relationship. It should be like, no, they love me. I know that, you
yeah.
know.
I I don't. It's. I do believe there will be doubt, and that's gonna happen because we're human. But
Yeah, it does
but
happen, but
yeah, but I. You
it
know
shouldn't
what?
be a common
Yeah,
mean.
yeah. But you know what? I couldn't think of a better way to end our lovely stream. I know I could go on all day with you because you're a lovely person, but I know you probably want to get to bed because it's still a week. So, at bottom of my heart, I do thank you. I do appreciate you for coming on and talking to nobody
Yeah,
like me. And I want to thank everyone who watched, even if it was just one singular person, because this is what I want to aim for myself, is having these conversations with people like Miss Zora or Toasty or others who are willing to want to speak, because obviously technology allows us to be able to connect, even though I am too far away. But it's a wonderful tool that can allow this, and I do appreciate it. So I want to thank everyone wherever you are for coming on. I appreciate you all, and I appreciate Zora 1,000 times over, because she's just so lovely. Even if I'm even if I trip over my own words and she scowls at me, I still appreciate
do
her for
I
coming.
scout?
No, no,
Oh
it's
no,
just a joke. It's just a joke. Don't, no, please, no, please.
I don't do it on purpose. Sorry.
No, you're right. So I will see you all again. Uh, Zora, I think you only have the Twitter, right? You only have your Twitter handle.
Yeah, just
Um,
Twitter.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's her Twitter handle. I almost said Twitter. Twitter handle is or Twitter X. Sorry, because now they want to say X, but it's Twitter X. Her handle is Zora8me, as in the number eight. I thought that was a funny pun because
Yeah.
Zora ate me. Once I realized, I
Yeah.
was like, that's a pretty good pun right there.
I was trying to do like a 7, 8, 9
Oh yeah,
joke,
I
but
get you, doing. That's pretty
that's
funny.
yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
that's what she has. And of course, I'm on both Rumble and YouTube under Daramuth. So thank you all for joining us, and I will be looking forward to the next one because I will again invite you for a next one because of how easy it goes between us. So, or how it flows between us. But anyway, good night, guys. Oh, before we go, for a piece of advice that you've learned in your life, what would you, if you could give one piece of advice from your experience in life, what would you impart on others, uh, whether it be relationship or not? What was like a key thing you've learned that you'd like to impart,
Um,
if you
For
could?
me, yeah, sure. I was thinking about this earlier today is like I was suppressing my emotions and I was suppressing a lot of things about myself or ignoring it or denying, that my life. First of all, I was denying that my life had value. So don't do that. And then listen to yourself enough that you don't have to be like me and be raw and vulnerable with in public or whatever. I That's me, but like um be honest with yourself about your emotions and uh, don't just don't just think to yourself, I'm strong, so I don't need anything. It's like you need attention, and even if that's from yourself, in a journal or talking to a friend or something, like your feelings matter. They'll come out some other way. They'll come out in a health issue, or they'll come out in outbursts, emotional outbursts, in which you might make a bad decision, do the wrong thing with take your life in a weird direction if you bottle too much up.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important to live with intention, know that your life is valuable, and don't ignore how you feel. At least admit to yourself how you feel, and if you have like a desire that's causing you a lot of problems, try to think about what the root of that desire is. The root of the desire may be, I want to feel safe, I want to feel loved, and maybe the way you're reaching for that is unhealthy. So
Mm-hmm.
you can just take a look at how you're feeling and understand that it is valid. There's a reason why you feel that way. But if you just give yourself a chance to like discover why that is, it might help, figure out how to approach that in a productive way.
Yeah,
You know,
and I couldn't say it any better myself because I may have written some poetry, but it's not always the. Anyway, thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you everyone, and I'll see
you.
you.